Okay, as I mentioned, we are going to record the session for this evening. So on behalf of Progressive Credit Union, I'd really like to welcome you all here this evening for our first-time homebuyers Zoom session. My name is Tim McLean. I'm the branch manager here for Progressive Credit Union here in Woodstock. And with our team,
join the meeting.
With our team in this area, we're going to, in Centerville and the sorry, just bear with me. In the Centerville and the Fredericton area, we're going to certainly look after your first-time home buying needs. I've been with Progressive Credit Union going on 20 years this year, and I will tell you, I've worked with a lot of people buying their homes for the first time. And I here at Progressive, I would like to think that we do make it relatively easy. We like to go through the process with our members and explain to them exactly what to expect when they do it. But still, all in all, it can be a very stressful experience for some people. So we want to have this session to help answer any questions that people might have. So we're really happy to have joining with us some people from our local business community that are instrumental in helping people get into their homes as well. So this evening we have with us the Fergusons, a couple here that are in the real estate business here in the Woodstock and surrounding areas. We also have Mike Miskimen, our local home inspector, and Ann Whiteway Brown, a local lawyer here in our area as well. So when they are speaking, they'll get to tell a little bit more about themselves as well and the process that's involved through the real estate, through home inspection, and through the legal process. But to begin, we have from our lending department, our lending team has put together a presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Bill Groves and his team, and they put together a PowerPoint presentation explaining some of the processes involved in first-time home buyers. So Bill, if you just give me a moment, I'm going to make you host.
Okay.
Okay, so change the host to Bill Groves. We're going to say yes. And that should allow you to put up your PowerPoint presentation. And just a note too that after each person's presentation, we want to open it up to questions if anybody wants to ask any questions as well. So.
All right, just a moment and I'll snag the presentation. How are we there now?
Yeah, it looks good, Bill. Yeah.
You can see it? Awesome. All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Groves. I'm the financial services representative at the Progressive Credit Union branch in Woodstock. We've put together a little PowerPoint for you tonight for first-time home buyers. Hopefully it will answer some of your questions, or it might help you think of some of the things that you hadn't predicted or thought of. So, are you ready to buy a home? Purchasing a home can be a complex, involved decision. Before buying, there are many things to consider. Can you afford to buy? It's a crazy market right now. Is the time right? Can you afford all the additional costs? There's insurance, there's closing fees, sometimes there's water tests and surveys. So ask lots of questions that might save you money down the road. And have you found a property that is right for you and your family? Buying versus renting. Buying a home requires planning, saving, and patience. It's important to consider your options and to consult with your local credit union. There are some advantages to owning versus renting. If you own, you have a place that you can call your own. You're building equity in something that is yours, and your mortgage payments act like a forced savings plan. Where if you're renting, life can be simpler. You have the flexibility to move on short notice. Repairs and maintenance and other issues are not your problem or your expense. And you may have a lower overall housing cost on a monthly basis. Some of the disadvantages between owning and renting. With owning, monthly housing expenses can increase. You may need to sell your house if you have to move. And sometimes they can cause a little bit of financial stress. Whereas if you're renting, you can't renovate to make the place yours. A lot of people that rent their homes out don't want you to hang pictures or have pets. So it kind of takes it away from the place really being yours. Sometimes you may be forced to sell, forced to move if the owner wants to sell or renovate. And you're not building equity with rent payments. You're paying somebody else's mortgage. So when it's time to buy a home, quite important to determine a budget. Figure out what you can afford to pay. If you sit down with a member of the lending team at the credit union, we can help you establish a fair budget for you, something that works with your current financial situation, and then you're prepared to go out in the market and buy appropriately. Find yourself a real estate agent. Very, very important. Somebody that can help you, somebody that has experience in the field to ask the questions on your behalf. When you're ready, make an offer. Then finalize the mortgage and sit down with your lawyer and complete the purchase. There will be lots of paperwork, lots of steps. It takes patience. There's probably more than 5, but 5 things that your bank won't tell you about a mortgage, but your credit union will. Your credit union would rather you pay off your mortgage early. Big banks would rather you take as long as possible. Financial institutions generate the revenue through interest and fees. Mortgages are long-term and generate a lot of interest, and big banks have an obligation to generate profits for their shareholders. Credit unions operate with member-first approach. We want you to be in a better financial position rather than for striving for record profits. Number 2, the best mortgage is not necessarily the one with the lowest interest rate. Aggressive rates may come with a lot of terms and conditions or restrictions. These may end up costing you money later, or at very least reducing the options with your financial decisions. Progressive Credit Union will make sure that you know what you're signing up for and that it is what you want. Number 3, low payments are not always a good thing. Mortgages are a long-time commitment between you and your financial institution. Time is interest. The more time, the more interest. We encourage financial literacy. We want you to completely understand how the math works. Number 4, your mortgage is about more than just the terms of repayment. Ask a lot of questions. There are a lot of terms and conditions which may even save you time and money. We want you to understand your contract and be comfortable with your decisions. Number 5, at the credit union, you are more important than the sale. The credit union cares about their members and their financial well-being. Let us help you to understand your financial decisions. Down payment, very, very important. When you're purchasing your first home, a minimum of 5% of your purchase price is required as your down payment. For example, if you're purchasing your home for $100,000, your down payment amount would be $5,000. Funds for your down payment can be from your personal savings, a first-time home buyer's withdrawal from a registered retirement savings plan, or a gift from an immediate family member. In addition to your 5% down payment, you may have the option to qualify for the first-time home buyer incentive. If you're interested in more information on the incentive, please visit www.placetocallhome.ca. First-time home buyers may also qualify for the first-time home buyer's tax credit. See www.canada.ca for details. You may hear us use terms conventional versus high ratio. A conventional mortgage is a loan for no more than 80% of the purchase price or the appraised value of the property. The remaining amount required for a purchase, the 20%, comes from your resources. For example, a $100,000 purchase price, if you're making a $20,000 down payment or higher, then you're looking at a conventional mortgage. If you need to borrow more than 80% of the money you need, you will be applying for what is called a high ratio mortgage. For example, a $100,000 purchase price. If you make the $5,000 minimum down payment, then you're looking at a high ratio mortgage. High ratio mortgages must be insured by CMHC or SAGEN. This insurance is required by law in Canada to ensure that lenders against default on Mortgages less than 20% equity. The premiums are paid by the borrower and can be added directly to the mortgage amount. Please always do your homework. Being prepared today may save you thousands of dollars later. And here is the Progressive Credit Union lending team with representatives in Fredericton, Centerville, and Woodstock. And if you have any questions, I guess we're going to open it for now, and Tim will open up the chat line.
Yeah, I guess if there is any questions, I think it does allow you to put your hands up or put something in the chat room, maybe. If you did have any questions on Bill's presentation. Well done, by the way, Bill and your team on that. That's
Thank you. I had a lot of help.
yeah, and your team, it looked really, really nice, right? So yeah. I'm just seeing if anybody has anything or anything in the chat. Darcy, I see your hand up there. Yes, so don't forget to unmute there, and we'll see if we can answer your question for you.
Thank you. One question that my boyfriend has, we're looking at what to do in the next few years here. He wants to know if you're not a first-time home buyer, because he had been on a mortgage previously, can you still withdraw from the RSP without paying income tax on it, or do you have to wait 5 years from having been part of that to sort of requalify as a first-time home buyer?
That's a good question, Bill. Do you know in your research, because I was able to put 5% in for my second home again, but whether you can take it from the RSP, I'm not sure. We have to look into that.
Darcy, I'm good. I would have to look that up to give you a confident answer on that. I will make a note, and I will grab your email from the login, and I'll get back to you with that answer tomorrow. Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Good question.
Great. It is a great question.
Yep. Sorry, I muted myself. Any other questions from anybody that I didn't see here? Just going through.
Actually, I do have another question, if that's okay.
Sure, sure. Helps out.
Is it ever too early to start meeting with the bank or with the credit union, sorry, to start planning for such a thing?
Not at all. It's great to come up with a strategy in advance, especially if there are concerns. Then it would definitely, the sooner the better. Get yourself to be in that spot so that when the right opportunity comes along, you're ready.
Thank you. That's great. I just don't have much experience myself in the home buying world.
Yeah, there's nice, Darcy, too, and I don't think it got mentioned there, but the credit union does have a nice website called honestmoney.ca, just called honestmoney.ca, and it talks about buying a home. It talks about investing, talks about renting versus home ownership. So if you go on that website, you might just at your own convenience scroll through it and might find some real good information too about buying a home. So it's honestmoney.ca. Yeah. Any other questions? I don't see anybody or anything else in the chat. I'm just gonna double check. Okay, don't see anything. Bill, are we almost ready for, we were going to have Jameson and Chelsea speak next. Are we ready for their presentation?
Yes.
Oh,
As soon as you make me host again.
Sorry, Melissa did have her hand up. But Melissa,
okay, yep.
Yeah, I see your hand there now. Did you have a question?
I was just going to mention, Tim and Darcy, we can send you, there's a first-time homebuyer's guide from Honest Money that I plan to send out to all participants. So you have that as a guide to kind of give you an idea from start to finish when you're looking at that process for first-time home buyers. So we'll provide any attendee, we'll send that in our follow-up email. So you'll have that as a reference as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Melissa. That's great. I appreciate that, right? So, okay. We'll turn it back to Bill. You're going to do the slides, and we're going to have Jameson and Chelsea first and introduce themselves and tell about themselves and talk about from a real estate perspective.
Okay. All right. We're good there now, Jameson?
Yep, we're good.
Awesome. Okay.
So I'm Jameson Ferguson, and this is my wife, Chelsea Ferguson. Chelsea's been in real estate for almost 3 years now, and I'm coming up on 2 years, but we've been in the construction industry for about 15 years. And we've built and sold 5 homes, and we're on our 6th home. A little crazy, yep. But the real estate market's been a little bit different. You know, we get into it and it's been busy. The homes are going for more than what they're normally going for, which is good for the sellers, bad for the first-time home buyers. So, you know, if you can get into the credit union and get your, you know, pre-approval essentially and know what you can afford, it will help the process a lot. You know what I mean? Automatically. So,
yeah, that would be step 1, get
Yep.
your pre-approval. Step 2, find a realtor. This kind of, you know, mimics your slides exactly, Bill, but find a realtor that you can trust. You're going to need to build a relationship with that person. So some people think you have to call the person on the sign. You just need to find somebody that you're comfortable with, that you feel is honest and can help you through the process. And then you can use that realtor to see any home. So that's kind of step 2. Step 3, once you find that home that you love, don't delay. The offer really should be done right away, and your realtor can walk you through every step of that and tell you what to expect. It's not uncommon right now to be in a multiple offer situation. So the quicker you can get at a property, the better. And if there is a situation where they're holding offers, then the realtor can walk you through that as well, and what that means and how to maybe make your offer stand out above somebody else's. And it's not always money. So yeah, then step 4 is kind of the big one. Once you're making that offer, there's lots of paperwork with that, but we make it really simple and easy, explain all of that to you. And then there's a negotiation phase. And then once your offer is accepted, you go through the conditions, which basically is about a 2-week period where you look at your insurance, you get your financing approved, you get your home inspection, big deal to get that done. And then once everything is firm, there's usually a 4 to 6 week period where you're packing, they're packing. There's not really a whole lot going on as far as paperwork or, you know, the process until closing day. So your realtor is there to walk you through every step of that all the way up to closing, and then after closing as well, because there's always little things that come up. So yeah.
and in the 4 to 6 weeks, then, you know, the lawyer has their time to deal with the paperwork to do the transition between both parties. Yep. You know, it's a short version of it essentially, you know, without bringing out all the paperwork to show all the conditions and stuff like that that are on a typical contract. But I guess if there's any questions for us, we can leave that open.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I just actually had a question. Can you maybe explain like what could be, Jameson or Chelsea, some conditions that might end up in a real estate contract? Like maybe what's some of the common ones that might be on there?
Yeah, there's the typical will be your finance condition.
Okay,
You know, getting your pre-approval and sending that letter, and then the credit union would send us a letter of approval.
okay,
Insurance condition would be one where you call your insurance companies and get quotes, and they send us a letter of insurability.
okay.
Just basically, the letter states, yes, I will insure John Doe for this property. Inspection condition, you call the inspectors and get them to come in, do an inspection,
Okay.
and then the inspector gives the report to the client, and then if they're satisfied with the report, we do
And there can be negotiations too, which I'm sure that Mike will touch on. But if the report comes back and there's an issue, maybe it's the roof or whatever, you have a chance to renegotiate the price. You can have the seller fix it.
Yep.
There's different things that you can do there.
Yep.
And then there's a deposit condition, which some people don't really understand that, but basically that comes off of what you owe at the end on closing day. So it goes into a trust account. It doesn't go to the seller, nothing like that. The real estate agent doesn't hold it. It goes into the trust account. So water test if it's on a well.
if it's in town limits, water tests aren't required because of municipal services.
Yeah.
And those would be the basic ones that would be on pretty well every contract that we do.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that too. Like even from the financial standpoint, what you mentioned about the insurance, because one of our requirements, of course, and the lawyer will tell you too, when Ann speaks, is that at closing, we do have to have the insurance, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
it does have to be a property that can be insurable, right?
Yep.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
it's good. Any other questions for Jameson or Chelsea from anybody? Melissa, your hand's still up, but oh, there is a message in the chat. I'm going to read the message in the chat. What about situations of people making offers and waiving inspections? How do you compete against offers like that?
It's tricky.
That's really frustrating for the first time home buyers, because if somebody comes in and they have, essentially no budget,
Yeah.
and they can buy $100,000 house and knowing that they can put $50,000 into it, no questions asked, even if something pops up, you know what I mean? A new roof, whatever.
Yeah.
That makes it hard for the first time home buyers to step in and buy that house.
We do always recommend one in every situation. However, in a multiple where you're up against that, it really comes down to your comfort level and the condition that the home is in.
Yeah.
If it is a newer home and everything looks pristine, you might be comfortable with waiving it. And if it's an older home, you might not be okay with doing that. And it really comes down to how you feel on a personal level about that.
Okay.
On waiving those conditions,
Yeah.
Because even if the bank requires water tests to be good as well, right? The mortgage
Correct.
lender.
Yes.
Essentially, if it comes back as a bad water test, you'd have to supply UV light filtration system, right, in order to get that to be a good test.
Right.
So you might not get approved for it if it comes back with a bad water test, right?
Yeah.
So.
But it is difficult in this day and age.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of cash offers. Some of them are coming in with no conditions at all, cash, and they're not writing in any conditions. So, but that's something that your realtor can definitely help walk you through. We may not have, we definitely won't have the details of the other offers, but generally you can sort of get an idea or a feeling on a property of what you might be up against, and we can walk you through.
Yep.
Yeah. It does become difficult. I understand where the person's coming from with first-time home buyer, because it's hard to compete against a person walking with the cash.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's great for the real estate people, of course, I understand that, right? But for the first-time home buyers, it does make it a little more difficult, right? So,
It's very difficult.
yeah. Any other questions or anything in the chat? Anybody else would like to? That's a good question, by the way. From
Very
the
good
chat.
question.
Yeah. Let's see if anybody else. Let me go through people here. I don't see any other questions at the time, but we are going to open it up again at the end if somebody has some more questions. So we're going to now, Bill, are you ready for our next presenter?
Give me 2 seconds and I will be right there.
Okay. We next are going to have Mike Miskimen. He's going to talk about home inspections and I'll get him to tell a little bit about his company and about himself and things like that. So Mike, I think Bill's almost ready. We're going to turn it over to you. Okay, and we're glad you could join us tonight too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tim. Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Miskimen. I'm born and raised right here in Carleton County. I studied civil engineering technology in Moncton, and I've worked for 12 years since then, up until starting my business 2 years ago. So I guess I'm here to talk about home inspections and what you would expect in a home inspection. Typically, you can expect to pay $500 and up. It depends on the size of the home, what's all involved. If there's a two-bay garage or a big workshop, or a dance floor with a jacuzzi, or it depends on all the equipment that I'm going to be covering over. But you can expect to pay around $500 for a home inspection. There's additional charges for other conditions, of course, like a water test and things of that nature. Excuse me. So as you can see, I threw up a brochure for you here. Didn't really have a lot of time to prepare anything for you. I'm quite busy these days, as you can expect. But for a home inspector, you can expect them, they spend some time on the outside first, of course. We walk around, we look at, any exterior receptacles, windows, check for, any caulking issues, any drainage issues. We want to make sure that the house is sound and secure from the outside. If conditions are available, we'll walk the roof. We check for any leaks or anything from the outside. We can give you a general estimation on how long the roof coverings will last. Like an asphalt shingle will last anywhere around 20 years. Metal roofs can be longer if they are installed correctly, things like that. At that point, an inspector will work their way in, and we break it down basically room by room. We test any built-in appliances, your stove, your oven, sinks, dishwashers, things like that. I open and close all windows, make sure that the receptacles are wired correctly. We test anything that we can visually see is tested. And beyond anything that we can see, an inspector will use moisture detection, thermal imaging. Thermal imaging camera is a very important tool for an inspector. You can see things like voids in insulation in walls, or active leaks or moisture in walls. They're absolutely wonderful. So it's quite important to get a home inspection, not just because I own my own home inspection business and I profit from it, but the home inspection process is extremely important. You want somebody in there with experience, who knows what they're looking for and can give you an idea of what you're buying. They can be a pristine home, everything can look perfect, but once you start looking at electrical panels and codes, staircases, GFIs in certain rooms. In New Brunswick, we're on the 2010 building code, so we're 10 years behind everybody else. But there's certain rules that apply here, like a GFI receptacle, which is the receptacle that has the test and reset button on it. In the 2010 building code, we only require them in bathrooms. So 2020 building code, a lot of people moving from Ontario, they're used to seeing them in their exterior receptacles, their bathrooms, their kitchens, and garages. I would never tell someone not to upgrade their receptacles to the safety receptacle, but if you wanted to meet code here, that's what my inspection, or what an inspection does entail. Yeah, I'd love to open up for questions if anyone had any specific questions or things that they would be concerned about with a home inspection. And again, it is a visual inspection. We can use some technology, but it is only things that we can see while we're there. So having someone with experience is very important, and making sure that they have the right equipment to crawl through that crawl space and shoot around with that thermal camera and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. That was really, it's a very thorough inspection. Very thorough.
It's yeah, and I mean I think maybe Ms. Whiteway Brown can speak further to the legality side of things, but when we get to the point where we're hiring an inspector, these conditions to be met, there's a lot of liability that lies on that. So an inspector who is thorough is a good inspector. You don't want them to find issues, but you don't want them to miss issues either. The point of an inspection isn't to find issues with the home. The way I build my report is if I was buying this home, this is what I would want to know. I'd want to know if there was some caulking issues around exterior windows, because not just in the next couple months could you get a leak. You could get a leak in that window in 3 years, but you should be detailed that we maintain our windows and keep them caulked up and yeah, things like that.
Yeah, and I guess like you would also maybe say, for instance, if you thought that in a few years the roof needed to be redone.
Exactly.
you would
Yes, I
mention
always
Yeah.
it's always it's kind of an estimation with a roof, but I always give how old I think the roof is and how long those roof coverings will last. So like I mentioned before, asphalt shingles pretty easy. They last about 20 years, and you can kind of tell after you've looked at enough of them if they're brand new, if they've been there 5, 10, or 15 years. And yeah, so and I take that same approach with windows, thermopane windows. They last anywhere from 15 to 30 years. I look at seals, make sure that we get the dates and we know how long these building products have been in use, so that you can kind of have an idea if you're going to be doing some window work in the next 10 years or 20.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll just see if there's any questions or anything in the chat for you, Mike. I'm just going to go through there. So there's a message in the chat here. Said person, apologies if I missed this during the presentation, but if issues are found, are you able to provide estimated cost of repair, or would that be outside of what you do?
So with the legality of things, a typical home inspector wouldn't mention price, because if I told you it was $5,000 to replace the deck boards, and the prices at the mill went way up like they did a couple of years ago,
Right.
all of a sudden that $5,000 job turns into $7,000. It really depends on the inspector, their comfortability. I typically I can talk prices with people, but I always make sure I'm very clear that I'm not a contractor. I'm not currently pricing jobs, so I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, I can typically give a person a roundabout idea of what they're going to spend. I'm on my second house. I'm not quite as in depth as Chelsea and Jameson, but yeah, and I buy my second house I paid less than $20,000 for. So I buy them old and get the mice out of them and fix them up. So it's yeah, I have some experience in that as well.
Okay. So that's good. So if they wanted to have an idea, nothing in stone, of course, about the price, but maybe an idea what it might cost.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good question, Jeremy.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to scroll through, see if there's any more.
Tim, I think Darcy has a question.
Darcy, yeah, I see Darcy's hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Darcy. Yeah.
Hello again. I'm wondering, the drain tile, if it goes into the ditch, is that something that you would look at?
So if it's visible, of course, like right now, it'd be kind of hard to see all the snow. But yeah, I always make sure I check a ditch line, and if I can visually see drain tile, I will comment on that. It's kind of better to see it than not to see it, because otherwise, where's your drain tile going? But for most home inspectors, I can't speak for everyone. It's kind of tough. No one's going to talk about things that they can't see. So I doubt you'll see a lot of comments on drain tile in a home inspection report.
Okay, thank you.
We always make sure that we look around the home. It's kind of tough in the wintertime, but in the spring is a great time. If you can see ponding water around especially around your foundation, there's a drainage issue there. Yeah, that's definitely, it'd be mentioned in your report if it was visible at the time.
Okay, good question. Good question too. Yeah. Okay, just double checking, but I don't think I see any more hands. And I'll just double check the chat again. But don't see anything. Okay, well, listen, Mike, thanks very much. Really informative. I really appreciated what you had to say there. Okay, so.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and so we're going to now, Bill, are you, I guess there's not, Ann didn't have anything, I guess, as far as presentations were concerned. Ann, if you want to speak, you can take the floor, and just don't forget to unmute.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to participate this evening. I've been practicing law in the Woodstock area for over 30 years. And I have never in that time period seen as busy a time of purchasing and sales as what we currently have. So when you're working with a lawyer, you need a lawyer, both sides need a lawyer. A lot of times vendors will think they don't need a lawyer, because the purchaser will look after everything. But the vendor does have their requirements that they need a lawyer for, as well as the purchaser. So when you contact, what we find is a lot of times people will call and they'll get a quote. and they base going to whatever lawyer they choose on the lowest quote. And it's like everything. We're all very competitive. I can't tell you what anybody else is charging. I just find, and I think most lawyers will charge what they feel their services are worth. I was talking to a client recently, and she was selling a home, and issues came up about her well. And the real estate agent said to her, well, check your paperwork when you bought the home, which was probably 3 to 5 years ago. She didn't have anything. I couldn't believe that. I did believe her, but I could not imagine that a lawyer would represent someone and not send them their paperwork. So I guess it's like anything, be careful. I mean, you don't need to ask your lawyer, are you going to send me paperwork? That should be a given. But when you contact your lawyer, one of the first things the lawyer's office is going to tell you is that you need to provide your birth certificate. And you've already provided identification to the mortgage to get your pre-approved mortgage. But the lawyer needs it as well. And even though you need to use your birth certificate to obtain a passport, we cannot use your passport. We need to see that original birth certificate. And that's because there's a naming conventions regulation that requires that. And we need a second identification, and we need to have that. That does not go anywhere. A lawyer is not going to transmit it over the internet. It will stay in the lawyer's file. Then the first thing that we would do when we get the agreement of purchase and sale from the realtor, and I really appreciated Jameson and Chelsea saying 4 to 6 weeks for the lawyer, because we're finding we're not getting any kind of a range in order to do the work we need to do. But what we have to look at the Service New Brunswick records, and the Service New Brunswick records will tell us whether that property is in the old registry system or in the new land title system. If the land is still in the old registry system, and that's the kind of system where you would read a land description and it might say it's a lot on a plan, or it might say that it commences at the poplar tree and goes so many rods to the beech tree and that kind of thing. So if you have a description like that, it has to be what we call migrated into land titles. And that's what your lawyer as a purchaser will do. Will do a final search of title, search to determine what the status of the property is, and then migrate it into the land title system. And that essentially will mean that that old description will now become the PID number from the tax bill. And that becomes the legal description of the property. And that's what is on the mortgage, and that's what's on your transfer. We don't do deeds anymore. We do what are called transfers. So it's the same thing as the old-fashioned deed. Looks very similar, but it just has a PID number on it with the people's names and full legal names. We don't use just first names and an initial anymore. We use full legal names, and we then have the property transferred to you. So the purchaser's lawyer has to work with the vendor's lawyer to get that document and get it in the right names. And it's all done electronically through Service New Brunswick documentation. So the purchaser's lawyer will prepare it, send it to the vendor's lawyer. They'll either reject it or they will accept it. And so we do all those things behind the scene. You don't need to know what's happening there, but that's what's going on. We have to get a copy of that insurance. So the realtor may have it and send it to us, or we can get it directly from the insurance company. Then we have to, once everything's done, we start calculating what it's going to cost you to register that transfer and the mortgage into your name. And that's when people really get taken aback sometimes. But I honestly find that people that have come through the credit union are not as surprised about all these costs because it's been explained to them. They understand. But oftentimes people coming through a bank have no idea some of the responsibilities and expenses that they're going to incur. The biggest one is the land transfer tax. And as a purchaser, you have to pay 1% of the higher of the purchase price or the assessed value. And right now, generally, purchase prices seem to be much more than the assessed values. So if you're paying $100,000 for your home, the land transfer tax is $1,000. And that's money that goes directly to the Minister of Finance. In addition, we have to pay $85 for each PID that we register. And that would be for the transfer and for the mortgage. We have to get a tax certificate from the province. They charge us $20 for that. Every time that I go on and look at the status of properties and look at the Service New Brunswick records, they track my computer. Service New Brunswick charges me. So as a lawyer, I'm going to pass that cost on to my client. If you're getting a mortgage through a bank, not credit union, I know this is a credit union presentation, but they often will use services such as TELUS, is what they're called. In order for me to get your mortgage instructions, I have to pay $35 plus HST to get that. So again, that's another cost I'm going to pass on to you. So the long and the short of it is, I used to tell clients years ago, add $2,000 to the purchase price of your property for closing costs. And that would include your insurance, that would include your legal fees, that would include the cost of getting a water sample, all of those things. Now $2,000 will not cover it. So you've got to allow somewhere, depending upon the purchase price of your home, between $3,000 and $4,000 at minimum over and above your purchase price. And a lot of people will come into me. I've had people in my office crying on closing because they didn't understand where their deposit was and how it was working. And I can honestly say clients coming through the credit union are not in this group, but I've had clients know that they have money in the bank for their deposit and their down payment, that 5%, and that $1,000 that they've already paid on as a deposit when they made their offer, maybe. And then they're wondering, well, that money's at the bank. They seem to think somehow that that money just magically comes to me. But what happens is that if you have 5% that you are going to pay, say $5,000, and it's in the bank, you have to physically get a bank draft made payable to the law firm in trust and bring it to me as part of your closing costs. In addition, I'm going to ask you to pay all your legal fees and the government fees for the registrations of your documents and all of those kind of things at that time. And I will go over all of that with you because I've done it for many, many years, but for every person, it's brand new, and it's an overwhelming amount of information that you're trying to absorb at a very stressful time. So don't ever hesitate to ask questions when you're at the lawyer's office. And you're going to feel, I often will tell clients, you probably feel that you're nickeled and dimed to death and you're insured to the yin yang. Because I'm going to be talking about getting property insurance from an insurance company. I'm also going to be talking about getting title insurance. And I'm also going to be talking about the CMHC insurance that Bill went over and explained to you. So all those insurances are there, they have to be paid. So if you're getting this a mortgage where you're only putting the minimum down and have to get CMHC insurance, and that'll all be worked out in your mortgage, and Bill will look after all that for you. But that amount has to come right off the top. So you borrow your mortgage plus the amount to pay CMHC, and it comes right off the top. And so then you have so much money available from your mortgage funds for me to apply to the purchase of your home. But then I'm adding all these other things on, and I'm asking you to bring in your down payment plus your closing fees, okay? So all that is looked after. Then after closing, well, before closing, I'm going to tell you, and I think Chelsea and Jameson will explain this as well to you, that you need to do a final pre-closing inspection. And that's not the same as what your property inspection was that Mike talked about, but that's just the one final look through that you have of the home that you're buying after the vendor has moved out. And you're going to walk in as close to closing as we can, usually the day before, and you'll make arrangements with your realtor, and you'll go into the home and look at it. Sometimes you had expected that they would leave the curtains or they would leave the whatever, and maybe it's gone. Okay, they packed it up maybe unintentionally. So you don't need to panic. We can always arrange that. We've had things mailed back from the other coast after it got moved out there. If somebody, while they were moving, put a hole in the wall when they dropped some of the furniture, we can hold monies back in order to get that fixed. If the fridge was working when the inspection was done, and now you're going through and the fridge is not working, we can make a determination as to the value of that fridge and hold it back at closing. So that final inspection that you do is very important. There might be, at this time of year, starting to thaw. If there are water issues, you might find that there's water in the basement. We'll deal with that. Your realtor is there to help you right through to the very end. So if they go in with you and you see that there's an issue, we'll address it before we close. And we always get a written acknowledgement from your real estate agent on your day of closing that we've done the final inspection, everything's fine, or we've done the final inspection and these are issues that we found. So that's all being dealt with for you. And so those are the important things that have to be done. Now, I also mentioned title insurance. And title insurance is in lieu of a survey. Years ago, we used to, as a matter of course, have building location surveys prepared by realtors. We haven't done those in many years. Very seldom do we get a building location survey done by a surveyor for residential purchase anymore. But we do instead get title insurance, and that's a requirement of your lender, that they have to know. I've done a search of title, and I know that the property was owned by Susie, and then it went to Bill, and then it went to Tim. I can tell you that there's a good chain of title and everybody conveyed off. So that's one of the things I do with the title search. But what I don't know, that the house that was conveyed is actually sitting on that piece of property, PID number, whatever. I can't determine that as a lawyer. So surveyors, though, could determine where the house was and whether it encumbered There was an encumbrance with the neighbor, whether the driveway was on the neighbor's property, that kind of thing. So it's very important that title insurance will cover those kind of possibilities. And title insurance, you get two policies when you purchase. The first one is for yourself as owner, and the other one is for the mortgagee. So the mortgagee is protected, as is the borrower of the property and the owner of the property. And as long as you own the property, you never need to reapply for it. I'll give you an example of an individual who had title insurance, and it usually they cost in the vicinity of $350 to $400 what title insurance costs. And that's a cost that's charged by the title insurer and it's just passed on to you. So that's one of those closing costs. But this particular individual had a home outside of town, had a septic system. It was determined on just before closing, when we were doing everything. I was representing the vendor who was selling the property, and she had purchased title insurance when she bought the property through another lawyer, and that doesn't matter. So we found out that her septic field was not contained within her lot lines. It actually went into the neighbor's backyard. Well, the neighbor did not want that to continue and wanted it fixed. Fair enough. So we contacted the title insurance company. The title insurer looked at it, and within probably an hour, they came back and said, okay, we'll fix it. Get us 3 quotes. And it cost $23,000 to fix that and put the septic field on her property. And the title insurer paid every cent of that. So when you need it, it's like any insurance. When you need it, it's worth its weight in gold. So you don't run across those very often. Probably, I've not had very many claims against the title insurance. That's why I guess they can keep going, because they don't have to pay out a lot. But they're very important when they are there. So other than that, I'm not sure what else. Oh, one other thing, when you're all done, you will get what is called by the lawyers and Service New Brunswick, a certificate of registered ownership. One time you used to get a certificate of title from the lawyer. That is all changed now, and we provide you with what we call an acronym for it is PRO, Certificate of Registered Owner. On that form, it shows who the owners are and who have any encumbrances against the title. And that is proof of your title. And it will have your mortgage to the credit union showing on there. And you will be listed, if you're buying with another person, the 2 people will be listed with their full legal names. And the mortgagee will be listed as an encumbrance holder. So that's an important document that you keep. If there had been a mortgage on title by the vendors, it may still show on there for a few weeks until the discharge gets registered, but then you'll get a new CRO without their mortgage showing on there. So anyway, there's a lot of information, and we all work together, as you can see. Everybody has their own little area that we look at, but we do all work together. And so that's what's involved in purchasing a home.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. That was really in depth. Really appreciate
Thank you.
that. So, yeah. Now, as far as I know, I've only got the session open till 8 o'clock. I don't know what happens if I didn't extend it beyond 8 o'clock, which is like 5 minutes. So I will open it up for questions, though, if anybody has some questions for Ann. I'm going to try to look for some hands if I can. So, and I guess if we were running short of time, if there's any questions for anybody, feel free to.
There's 2 questions in the chat box, Tim.
Is there? Okay.
There's one fresh one.
Okay, let me just go in there for a second. The
Oh,
last one.
sorry, we've already covered those. Sorry.
Yeah, 7:32 one got covered, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So-
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Let's just see if anybody else has any questions. See if anybody hands are up. Just going through. Oh. I just have a comment, not necessarily a question, but very informative, even from just a second. Even from a non-first time homebuyer, thank you. And from Rhonda Calhoun too, great presentation, everyone. Yeah, I want to thank everybody that actually did join tonight. It was really, really very informative. I learned a lot of stuff too, and we especially want to thank Jameson and Chelsea and Mike and Ann, and of course our lending team here, Progressive. For everybody that was able to join tonight too, I know that our nights are busy. Lots of us are resting after a day at work, but we thank you for taking the time to join us. Feel free to reach out to any of my lending team, and we'd be happy to answer any questions for you. Either drop in and see us or send us an email. But thanks again for all of my the presenters and everybody that was able to join us tonight. We really enjoyed seeing you all, and take care, stay safe, and we'll be talking to you. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Tim.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Thanks, Bill.
Yep. Thank you. That was a great session.
So this is a question that came from my son. I want to tell you this question, okay?
Yep.
This is quite funny. Okay, Ryan was on from Montreal, okay? And let me see what he said. Bill plays Warhammer and Diablo 3. I said, I don't know what that is.
So yes, I play Diablo 3. I do
I
like
said-
the hack and slash games, and my grandson plays Warhammer.
He says, I said, well, I don't know what those are. And he said, video games. We could see his desktop.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks
It's one
again,
of those.
Jason, for joining us tonight too. Really appreciate it. Okay.
No problem, Tim. Thanks for having us. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a really nice session. I didn't expect it was going to go, but really happy to win as long as it is. So good night, everybody.
Okay.
See ya.
Thanks.
Yeah, bye.